Are you okay if Mamdani wins that you, so to speak, contributed to that?
Why would they do that? All they did was galvanize 1 million Muslims who can vote in New York City to vote for Zoran. How stupid is that?
I interviewed Curtis Sliwa, the Republican nominee for mayor of New York City. I first met Curtis about a month ago when I was just waiting on a subway platform on my way to ask New Yorkers who they were voting for. Then lo and behold, Curtis Sliwa is just right there. So of course I had to interview him until the train came. And that clip went on to get over 700,000 views on Instagram. So I asked his team if I could have a longer sit down with Curtis. Now we're here. Make sure you stick to the end because I'll be asking the question that is on the minds of millions of Americans. This is Curtis Sliwa like you've never seen before. Welcome back to the Nate Friedman Show.
So I wanted to start off by saying how cool it was to run into you at the train station. I mean, I think part of what people like so much about you is that they can run into you at a train station and that it feels like you're a real New Yorker. I was actually on my way to go and interview New Yorkers and I saw the red beret. It's the Guardian Angel guy, of course. So I just want to say thank you for doing that. Your whole team was there and you just, you didn't have me vetted or anything like that. You didn't have the questions beforehand, either like today, so thank you. I watched the debate last night. I felt like I needed Advil watching that not because of the candidates, but because it felt like the moderators were running for mayor.
Yeah.
And they were constantly talking. What was your impression of that debate?
This has become a commonality in debates. For existence, 1977, the better Cuomo, Mario, was running for mayor on the Liberal Party line against Ed Koch, the Democrat, who ultimately won. And you had the Republican state senator from the Upper East Side, and you had Barry Farber, who was a talk show host like I am. You had 12 debates.
Yeah.
The dean of the newscasters, Gabe Pressman, hosted most of them. He basically asked the question, stayed back. If it got too contentious between the four, he'd break them up or know there was time to move on. Now the moderators feel it's all about them. I sat there for the first, I would say, 8 to 10 minutes, even though I was positioned right in the middle and felt, am I a person of no consequence? Do they not realize I belong on this stage? I'm the second major party candidate. And they seem to have only eyes for Zoran, who was like a robot, everything affordability. And Cuomo, who's old and hackneyed, hadn't come up with any new material. And it's like, hey, we saw this debate in the primary. Cuomo lost. And I'm saying to myself, okay, that's it, gloves off. I'm not waiting for them. I'm going to start interjecting myself, and that's what I had to do. And it's really upsetting that they don't get it. It ain't about them. It's about the candidates who might become mayor. The more time we have to discuss what we would do means you're going to have more opportunities as potential voters to make your determination. And the first 10 minutes, they weren't going to give me that room. So I basically, like I always do, because I'm not the son of a privileged family, with legacy, I've always had to, like roller derby, elbow my way. And I took advantage of all the skills I've developed in talk radio in 35 years and went into turbocharge on both of them simultaneously.
Yeah.
So you saw Zoran, he was like, whoa, I didn't expect this. Andrew knew it was coming, should have prepared for it, and just was stumbling, mumbling, and feeble. And you can tell. When somebody's out of gas. Yeah. Then they don't have the energy any longer, and yet he doesn't want to give up. Too much baggage, too much time spent being the governor in which people remember him not in the fondest way, but in the failing way, and always refusing to apologize. That arrogance, that indignation. And what I find is that in the political class of people, they never want to admit they're wrong. They just don't want to admit they're wrong. They don't address issues. They don't reach people in a common way. Even if you disagree with them, they try to talk over their head, try to treat them like they're sheep. So, perfect example, when you're dealing with the legacy of Cuomo. He's reinvented himself so many times. He thinks that people are stupid. And quite frankly, almost all of them do, Republicans and Democrats. I've actually been involved in conversations where they say, Curtis, they're not even going to remember what you said 5 seconds ago, 5 minutes ago, five 5 days ago, 5 weeks ago, 5 months ago, 5 years ago. They're all sheep. They need sheep herders. They're stupid. Stupid. Oh, you really believe people are stupid? Well, I'm with people all the time. I treat them like a mosh pit. I trust people more than I trust the billionaires or the professional political class. And that I radiate that all the time. And I think they find that offensive because I'm not part of their cabal. I'm not part of their group.
While I was watching the debate, there was a particular moment that you wanted to interject with some of your thoughts, and it was when Mamdani asked Cuomo, name a mosque that you visited in the last 10 years, and you couldn't do it. Do you feel like that should be a credible attack line in 2025 in New York City?
No, that's what I was trying to do, believe it or not, throw a lifeline to Andrew Cuomo, who's been asked that now 3 times. Cynthia Nixon, the star of Sex and the City, ran against him for governor when he was riding high in the saddle on the Working Families Party line. She asked him that question then. Never went to a mosque. You would have thought he would have addressed that before the primary debates. Again, hadn't gone to a mosque. Now all of a sudden he's going to every mosque. Anytime he sees a mosque, he walks in. I don't think that should define you as a candidate. I've been to mosques, churches, synagogue, but I'm not going to purposely go somewhere because that's the old political thing. You got to go to a house of worship. I was going to throw him a lifeline and say, hey, Zoran, how come you don't come to my church, the Subways? That's where everybody is. Religious, non-religious, that's where people are. Because they want to define you by how many churches, synagogues, and mosques you go to. And I want to define you as, are you with average, everyday working people? Now, most people are not religious. They're out of touch with New York City. Most people are not religious. They don't go to mosque, they don't go to synagogue, shul, they don't go to church. But they have this old mindset. Oh, this means I'm friendly to people. Yeah, let me tell you something. I've been to enough mosques and enough synagogues and shuls and enough churches and temples to let you know they battle one another. Especially if you go into Jewish synagogues and shuls, you go to the Reform, Conservative, the Orthodox, Hasidim, they're constantly battling one another. And I know that because my 2 youngest sons were raised Jewish. So I say, okay, you spend your time doing that. I was actually going to save Andrew there, but Andrew sinks his own boat. You would have thought by now he would have remembered which mosques he's gone to recently. No memory recall.
Got it. Now, there were 2 particularly viral moments from your debate that I would like you to sort of explain more of your stance. So one of which was when you were asked, would you have the NYPD cooperate with the National Guard, and you said no. Can you explain a little bit more? Because amongst Republicans, it is quite popular to have the Guard come in and clean up the city when local politicians won't. So could you explain?
Yeah, well, it's already been done. And I have to give credit to somebody that I'm working hard to make sure she's no longer governor, Governor Kathy Hochul. But it is true. I want Elise Stefanik. I'm going to do everything I can to get her elected governor next year. But in the crime crisis we had in the subways in 2024, and we had a horrible crime crisis, where the mayor was saying it's your perception, where the police commissioner, Jessica Tishnew, was saying it's an anomaly, Kathy Hochul sent 750 National Guards people in. Spread them out.
Yeah, I remember.
Then Debrina Kawam, oh, none of them remember her name, because they wanted to drop that focus of a woman burning like a candle on the F train at 9 o'clock in the morning at the Coney Island Stillwell station.
By an illegal immigrant.
Right, setting ablaze by this pyromaniac migrant that we were housing and feeding and clothing, who actually fanned the flames and then watched her as she just twisted. And she sent an additional 250 National Guardsmen after that. That was good. That helped stabilize the subways. So I have guardian angels all over the country. And I know exactly where you do need the National Guardsmen. Don't send them here to New York. We don't need them. Baltimore, which is nicknamed Body Bag City. Yes. New Orleans, always out of control. Memphis, which they're doing now, has the highest crime rate, even though it's a much smaller city. And I can go right on down the list of cities that would welcome the National Guard in those poor and impoverished communities. They would roll out the red carpet for them. Here, it's really not necessary. You got to get more cops, and you got to allocate them differently, and then it's a very manageable situation. It doesn't require the Guard.
Yeah, because I was in D.C. recently, and I've been to D.C. many times before the guard went in, and I was in D.C. after, and I have to say it was much cleaner. I felt safer. So I guess I understand kind of where you're coming from, that it should be done in another way, but I think the issue is when the mayor or local politicians does not take action. Like, I want to bring up one specific instance, and this might be part of a bigger thing, but I'd love your opinion on this. Earlier this year, we had an innocent citizen, New Yorker, was stabbed brutally in Lower Manhattan at City Hall Station by someone who has been arrested 70 times, 70. Yep. We can't be a fully functioning society with that. It's just not possible.
No.
So who is profiting from this? Why is this happening 70 times?
Before we see more of Curtis Sliwa in a light that you've never seen before anywhere on Legacy Media, I want to talk to you about Ground News. And after I do, I will ask Curtis about whether or not he plans to stay in this race until Election Day and why. So don't go anywhere. On the way to protest, I scroll through the app so I can see the news the way that the protesters do. What Ground News does is simple but effective. You know how when anything happens in the news, the left is going to cover it significantly differently than on the right. Well, they essentially allow you to access every news publication in the world and compare coverage against the left or the right. It's even more than that though, because the left and right often cover completely different stories, so you might miss something simply because you're only reading one or two sources of news. Whereas if you use Ground News' blind spot feature, that really doesn't happen. You'd be surprised what both sides choose not to cover. But even for the stuff that they both cover, look at how different the coverage can be. The left is talking about how the mayoral debate had Mamdani dog-walking his opponents while carrying out the left's message, whereas the right is highlighting how Mamdani was evasive by dodging attacks. I can't recommend using Ground News enough. To get started with Ground News, I'd recommend the Vantage plan, which gives you unlimited access. I know from experience how good that plan is. Now, I use the plan to create my videos, and you can get up to 40% off that same plan. Just head to ground.news/Friedman or scan the QR code to help us to continue to cover security costs for these videos. And now, back to Curtis.
Who is profiting from this? Why is this happening 70 times?
Because we don't have enough police. They're spread thin. And it's like playing chess on a chessboard. You move them from crisis to crisis to crisis. So you move them into an area where major crime has occurred, but now you're vacating other areas and making it more opportune for those similar crimes. I'll give you one even worse. Whitehall Street, right before you get off to take possibly the ferry over to the Statue of Liberty, right? It's an enormous area, financial, tourism. 10 o'clock at night, the train is there, it's the W train. A man has died, a migrant. He's had a heart attack, unbeknownst to everybody. He's laying down, they all think he's drunk. Another guy walks in while people are in the train, looks at the guy, touches him, rapes him anally and orally. It's on film. Yeah. Everybody must have thought it was something being filmed for a movie or TV. He did nothing. He then walks out, no mask. He eventually ends up being arrested. No more than 15 minutes later, a large black woman comes in, unrelated to the first violator. She's wearing a mask. And she sees him now laying down with his pants down on the seat. And she goes to his pockets and steals what little money he had and walks off, and everybody is aghast. Now, it's all on video. You would have thought by then cops would have responded, right? What's the point of having video if there's no rapid response? And we're not talking an outer area of New York City hard to get to. We're talking Whitehall Street.
Right, but just to push back a little bit, so what's frustrating is that this particular guy that I brought up at the beginning was arrested 70 times. To me, it's not a police issue. This person should be in jail. So I want to ask again, why was he not in jail the third or fourth time that he was arrested? And who's profiting from it? Because it's a corrupt system.
Let's talk to Andrew Cuomo, who in 2019 was on a stage in Central Park, the Global Citizens Festival, spoke to the world. We are going to lead, no cash bail. Others will follow. We're going to close our prisons. We're going to close Rikers Island. With no alternative. So here was the governor of the state, Cuomo, now running for mayor, who was the author of No Cash Bail. He's running in the primary, again, he doubles down. We're going to have no cash bail, which is led to all this. That man who was basically in a turnstile justice system, 70 arrests, 70 times he's out on the street, without knowing all the details. I'm sure some of the details had certain nuances, but most of the
He attacked a police officer. This guy assaulted a police officer before he was arrested.
Cuomo with his parole board released 43 killers in just 8 years. This is New York and New York City.
What's the incentive for him, given that I can't ask him right now? Why would he do something like that?
Because everything is a calculation for politicians, especially Democrats. Back then, remember, there was a movement left. He always wanted to be president. He wanted to accomplish what his father was unable to accomplish. And he saw that these candidates lining up, Harris and Buttigieg and Bernie and all the old left-wing guard were running. Remember, it wasn't until they found Joe Biden was the only one who polled well against Donald Trump. They went with Biden. Before that, everybody was swinging far left. And he wanted the bona fides of that. With never considering the ramification, other states followed. And they believed, oh, well, look, no cash bail, close your prisons, turn criminals loose, restorative justice. We shouldn't incarcerate. We should turn them into the streets. This is that liberal wave. And it's the Democratic Party. They allowed socialists into their ranks. That's what they believed. But if you notice, ever since Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders has never been a Democrat. I remember sitting at the University of Vermont when he was the congressman. There's only one congressperson for all of Vermont. Two boys from Brooklyn were talking. I had just lectured there for a full hour. He had been the mayor in Burlington. I said, how come you never become a Democrat? I'm not a Democrat. I'm a socialist. So if you let him into your presidential primary to try to make Hillary look good, and boy, did that backfire because it showed that she had challenges. Then you have AOC come in. Nobody knew her. Joe Crowley, who would have been the Hakeem Jeffries now if he had run a decent race. Didn't even run a race. She beat him. Then the mother of my two children barely won being district attorney with a tremendous race. She was assemblywoman, councilwoman, borough president against Tiffany Caban, who was a mini-me of AOC. As DA, would have released all the criminals, would not prosecute. On election night, Tiffany Caban won. It was only on the absentee ballots that Melinda Katz won. We had the warnings all along. The Democrats never responded. The moderate Democrats never protected their flank. And now they're controlled by socialists. And this is part of the socialist mantra, which is now part of the Democratic doctrine. That's why it's so important we have a strong, viable alternative, which is the Republican Party.
And so one of the questions, again, was about asylum seekers. I'm sure you remember it well. And amongst Republicans, again, it was not a popular answer, I think. I don't know. I didn't interview everybody, but not a popular answer to say that you would basically defend people that were getting deported from the immigration court. I've interviewed a lot of asylum seekers. I'm putting that in quotes because many of them tell me flat out that they're here to make money and then go back to their home country. And 25% of them, according to ICE, are prior criminals. I mean, they've sex offenders, traffickers. So can you give more context to your answer?
Sure. First of all, it was Andrew Cuomo, when he was governor, who called ICE thugs, and I condemn them for that. They had to go basically in hiding, ICE. They couldn't even participate in parades. Nobody ever gave them acknowledgement. Trump gets reelected, beats Harris, they're revived, they're resurrected. Tom Homan comes to the forefront. In the initial stages of their revival, people were applauding them, getting drug dealers, gang members, sex traffickers, narco-terrorists, all the bad hombres, as Trump called them. Not easy to do because criminals hide in the shadows. They're trying to avoid law enforcement. Somebody in Washington imposed a curfew. 3,000 arrests a day. Curfews don't work. Amend that. Quotas. Imposed a quota, not a curfew. So now you had to make 3,000 arrests a day, ICE agents. I know, I've spoken to ICE agents. This is wrong. Just as stop and frisk was wrong when all of a sudden Bloomberg put quotas on it and said cops had to do 5 stop and frisks a day by the end of their patrol. It's a disaster. So now you're picking up people in Home Depot, in the backs of restaurants, hospitality industry. You're standing outside of the courthouse. People come in. They have the paperwork they were given when they came through the portal, when they were paroled into the system. These are the ones who did everything the way Biden, Mayorkas, and Harris said. They're coming to their court hearing. ICE is there, snatches them up. Now, are they wanted for other crimes? Are they wanted for not having appeared and they violated parole? Fine, take them. They broke the law. But a lot of these people, you find out, are just doing what they were told to do. So why are we going for the low-hanging fruit and alienating people who now have become part of our essential workforce? If you were to suddenly put them on chains, put them in chains and shackles, what we call a daisy chain perp line, take them to Limigre for deportation, Vesey Street or Elizabeth in New Jersey, who's going to work in the restaurants? Who's going to work in the hospitality industry? When Trump went out to Iowa, big Republican farmers were saying, Trump, you're killing us. We don't have people to pick the crops, pack the crops in order to go to market. We have nobody to work in the slaughterhouses. And then Trump, well, we got to create a different vehicle. The quota thing is what's killing it. And I believe that no matter who you are, legal or illegal, you're still entitled to due process. If I arrest you, you go, you plea out, you're found guilty. Now you do time in an American jail, and then you get deported.
The problem is that there wasn't due process for them getting here. I mean, you're talking about 15 million people who are here illegally. How do you give them all a court date? How do you have due process for all of this?
Well, why are they showing up at court? Because they were given a piece of paper that said, on this day, at this time, in this courtroom, you are to show up because we have paroled you in. Now, you could say that wasn't legal, but at the time, the Biden administration made it legal. Now, of course, Trump wants to undo it. He wants a fast track. He'd like to send them right to the gulag in El Salvador. And I understand the psychology. You show that to people.
But do you think he wants to send those guys to people who are not criminals? He wants to send them all to El Salvador?
He doesn't want illegals here. I mean,
right.
he's made that very clear.
That I'd agree with.
So I would suggest to him, does he want an economy that's thriving? Because right now, that economy is dependent on a lot of illegal aliens. Just talk to the people who run businesses who can't find Americans that'll work that job. So it's what we call in Italian mezze, half and half. The public will support you when you go after drug dealers, gangbangers, sex traffickers, narco-terrorists. The public will turn on you when it appears you're taking out people who were told this is the way you do it right. Now all of a sudden you're going to rewrite the rules and deport them only because of a quota. Before the quota, they were doing all the right things.
So I think I want to move on to another topic that I felt like did not get any airtime really, which was like on the way here, I mean, 10 blocks here, I saw a homeless person every other block. And I've spoken to many homeless people, as you have, which is a lot of the time they don't want to be in the shelters because it's dangerous, they get robbed, or they want to just be able to get high in peace. So what is the solution?
Well, there's a very clear solution. It started with Eric Adams, who I warned would be corrupt and we'd have chaos when I ran against him in 2021. People didn't listen. They elected him. So he becomes the Biden of Brooklyn. He somehow finds $7 billion to take care of people we don't even know, the migrants. But not enough money to take care of our own homeless, emotionally disturbed, and veterans, most of whom are African American. So now that we're sort of getting less and less migrants, they're being cycled out of our system. We're still caring for about 50,000 in shelters, which is incredibly expensive. You say, okay, well, how do we take care of our own needy? We have 300 shelters that are run by the Department of Homeless Services. It is an industrial complex of nonprofits. It is a money-making operation that gives little results other than a roof over your head. So let's say you end up being homeless. You go into a shelter, total chaos. Like one flew over the cuckoo's nest in the Micah shelters, of which there are about 35. Those are for mentally ill and chemically addicted. They need to be in psychiatric hospitals. They need to be in mental health care hospitals. They're not. They're in a Micah shelter. So what that means is, by 10 o'clock at night, they have to be in to keep their bed. They get kicked out at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now they're in that neighborhood. What are they doing from 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night? They're not with programs. They're not getting therapy. They're roaming around stealing. They're chemically addicted. It could be drugs, alcohol. They're causing chaos. So this institution has created problems in 350 neighborhoods that make up the city of New York. Having been in about a third of these homeless shelters, you start with making it safe. There are guards who are employed. They have to be able to keep discipline. They're not permitted to do that. You know now, cops are not even permitted to go into a shelter unless there's a 911 call. It used to be you had a homeless outreach unit. It was disbanded by de Blasio, who took $1 billion out of the police budget. As a result, disbanded this unit, which was made up of cops and medical workers. They knew who the homeless and emotionally disturbed were. They knew who the directors of the shelters were. They knew everybody, and they go in and out, and they would resolve problems. Now, if a police officer were to show up at a shelter, let's say they're just patrolling the area, want to check in, see how things are. Excuse me, officer, you're not permitted in. Why? Our clients may get post-traumatic shock syndrome from seeing your uniform. This is Eric Adams' policy. Now I didn't know. Of course you knew. But it helps continue this promotion of this industrial complex of nonprofits that suck the money out of the budget and then run chaotic operations that lead to more people saying, I can't live here. I'm getting sexually assaulted, robbed, beaten. So they go to live in the subways, the streets, and the parks. We have more than enough shelters for them, but they got to be safe and secure. That's something I would know how to do. And also, we have to be able to take them out of the streets and the parks and the subways and get care for them, especially the emotionally disturbed. You see them everywhere. Everybody sees them everywhere. Some of them are veterans. So we've had administration after administration after administration. First we had de Blasio. He had this program Thrive, that was supposed to take care of the emotionally disturbed. $1.5 billion with his wife in charge, the grifter Charlene. First thing I do when I become mayor, spreadsheets, where's the money? You're going to be hanging out in Rikers Island for a while because they stole $1.5 billion. Where did the money go? They've never had any clients. They never had any testimonials of people say, oh, in my worst agonies, I was hopelessly depressed. My Thrive therapist really kept me from going over. I haven't heard one testimonial because the Democrats, although they attacked the program, never took out warrants, never took out subpoenas, nothing. So the money was taken, never used. Then you had Cuomo. And when he came into office, 40,000 beds for the mentally ill, down to 4,000 by the time he fled, seeking impeachment over budget cuts. Where did those 36,000 people go? And then, of course, Eric Adams, who spent $7 billion that he said we didn't have. I don't know where he found that money in the budget, and didn't give any of it to the people that we had who were suffering. So that's how I would resolve it. I know how the programs are supposed to work. I would cut those budgets. I would get that industrial complex of nonprofits out of the system because all they're doing is hiring their own friends, their own cronies. They have subcontracts, they go to their own families. It is I'll just say it is filled with so much corruption and kickbacks because millions of dollars are expensive. And the people who need the services are not getting it.
So how do you, and we'll get to more of like what you can really do as mayor, but how do you get rid of the NGOs in this industrial complex? Because it's not a secret. People know that this is a grift, but how do you stop it? How does one mayor stop that?
Well, it's all patronage. They come about because they support the Democratic Party. They make contributions to their events. They have family members who are hired. It's you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And it's been going on for years. And so what you do is you say, that's it. City Hall is not for sale. There's no patronage. This is not about party affiliation. Do you run a program? Let's check it out from top to bottom, because if it's not shape, as my dad would say, a merchant seaman for 50 years, that's out. You're out. You're no longer going to be a provider. We are going to cancel your contract, which is probably way too expensive to begin with. There's no auditing. There's no oversight. There's no transparency. And we have a Department of Investigation in the city of New York. You know who appoints the commissioner of the Department of Investigation?
Tell me.
The mayor. How can you have a commission investigate all the agencies that the mayor is responsible for, since he's appointing his own crony? Luckily, we have one now who's very good and has separated herself from Eric Adams. She went before city council. She said she had 14,600 cases pending of political corruption and needed 23 investigators, lawyers to deal with it. It would have cost us $1.5 million. You know what the Adams administration and the city council said? Oh, no, no. So in my administration, the Department of Investigation commissioner doesn't get picked by me or the city council, because obviously they're going to be looking at us and other agencies. You have an independent, autonomous commission. All these men and women who left their careers when Eric Adams was not prosecuted but was saved by the Trump administration, and out of a conscious decision gave up their careers, bring them all back. Investigate wherever you want to investigate, come hell or high water. If it's me or anybody else, you got to be willing to be investigated yourself. Cuomo was the governor. He put together a Moreland commission. He said, we're going to investigate the judicial, the legislative, it's corrupt. They finished doing all of that. He appointed all the people. Then they came knocking on the door of the executive office. They said, well, Governor Cuomo, it's now time for us to review what's going on in the executive office. Well, he said, no, he shut it down. He almost got indicted for political corruption on that one by then U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. He should have been. Yeah. But you see, you can't be the one appointing or controlling an agency that's supposed to be vetting out corruption. It has to be independent and autonomous. And now you start saving a lot of money, because everybody will be terrified that people are rats. See, this is what they're terrified of, that snitches get stitches and end up in ditches, that everybody's wired up, everybody's an informer. I would love to have that kind of situation going on, because it would keep the servants of the people who are supposed to be selfless servants from being self-serving servants, which a lot of them are.
Let's talk about Mamdani for a second. So something that I hear a lot is that, what can a mayor really do? In your opinion, what kind of destruction could Mamdani do within 1 year? In his first year in office, what can he really change?
First 3 months, wouldn't even take a year. Okay. So let's assume Mamdani wins. He's got the backing of a majority of the city council. It would be different if the city council was adversarial like they are to Eric Adams now. And the real mayor of New York City is Adrian Adams, who is the speaker of the council, because Eric Adams can't get anything done, because he never built relationships and affiliations with the council people. But now he'll have as an ally the Speaker of the City Council, whoever that comes out to be, because Adrian Adams is term limited. He'll have the DAs on his side, because most of the DAs believe, like Alvin Bragg in Manhattan, arrest them, turn them loose. I'm not going to follow the rules and regulations of being a DA. Who is going to counter Zohran Mamdani? Nobody. We don't have a strong enough Republican Party with strong enough members who have been elected to sort of be a balance. So, boy, he can such damage in 3 months.
What can he get through? What can he put?
Well, first we know there'll be a mass exodus from the police department. We only have 32,500 now. There will be people putting in for early retirements, recruiters from other police departments that lust to have New York City trained cops of 3 years or more will be in here with RVs recruiting people. So you're going to have a complete collapse of public safety. You're going to have an administration that wants to give away money for programs that we don't have, because there's no more COVID money. The state has a $36 billion pending budget gap. They have to balance their budget. No more COVID money. And we see what Trump is doing. He's withholding money. First, he did it for Medicaid. He did it for food stamps. He's going to do it for NYCHA. He just took $7 billion. He said, look, if Zohran is elected, I take the $7 billion here, and I'm going to be taking more. And he can do it. Now, you can go to court and fight it, but initially, you're not going to have the money. And I don't think Zohran cares. You see, I think he's smart enough in the DSA, and the Working Families Party is smart enough to know Trump holds most of the cards. But should they not be able to fulfill their agenda, they got a perfect fallback. It's not because we were idealistic and we were dealing with fantasy and not reality. It's because of Trump, Trump, Trump. See, keep the focus on Trump. He's the boogeyman. We're David. He's Goliath. We couldn't get these things done because of Trump, Trump, Trump. And unfortunately, they'll have enough acolytes, enough people following them who will believe that nonsense until they finally turn around and say, well, there was no money in the beginning to do this to begin with. We bought it because Zohran Mamdani was a smooth operator, sort of like that Sade song, smooth operator. I would bet you he's probably studied films. He sees how Barack Obama functioned, who was the smoothest of all operators, but nowhere near as radical as Zohan Mandami. And the key is they have their fallback position waiting. And you can see they're going to have a rally over the weekend, against the oligarchs, against the kings. Their whole mantra is to fight Trump. And my whole position is, look, I've had a love-hate relationship with Trump, but you fight Trump, you lose. He controls the purse strings. They don't care about the people. This is an ideological battle, and if they lose, they think they win. But we're the ones who suffer. So I think within 3 months, you can see an implosion taking place in New York City, an exit of business, unprecedented, an exit of population, homeowners selling at loss just to get the hell out of here, and police leaving in droves because other police departments would be more than willing to hire them.
So, hearing all that, you've made it very clear, of course, that Mamdani would not be good for New York City. And, as a New Yorker and someone who's just, I'm online all the time and I see what people are saying, I'm sure you come across this. Bill Ackman, for example, yesterday said that, a vote for Curtis Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani. I'm not going to ask you, are you going to drop out? Because I know the answer is no, and I know you're probably tired of hearing that. However, I think it is clear to New Yorkers who are against Mamdani that you and Cuomo are splitting the anti-Mamdani vote. So my question is simple. Are you okay if Mamdani wins that you, so to speak, contributed to that?
Well, number one, Ackman is a jerk. Has he been right yet? Here's a guy who goes up to Newport, Rhode Island and thinks he's a professional tennis player. Come on, Ackman, stay in your lane. Does he know anything about politics? No. Does he live in New York City? No. He lives in Chapakua, the whitest suburb of America, where even the lawn jockeys are white. He may know Wall Street. He may know hedge funds. He has been wrong every step of the way with the billionaires. So let's say people come to the conclusion, if somehow I lose, and we know Andrew Cuomo's lost, he's already tossed in the town. Oh, it's because of you, Curtis. Really? It's because of the Democrats. Wait a second. Who created Zohan Mandami? Who embraced him? Who nourished him? Who supported him? And how dare you, people who know nothing about politics, suggest that everybody who's going to vote for me is suddenly going to be reborn? We love Andrew Cuomo. He killed all these elderly. He's a sexual harasser. He told conservatives and Republicans in 2014, if you're conservative and you believe in right to life, and the Second Amendment, you have no place in New York. You need to leave. This is the result of the Democrats' self-destruction. So I'm supposed to help them? How come they don't help themselves? Andrew Cuomo failed everybody in that primary. He even admitted it. Now he's basically saying, I can't win without Sliwa votes. Where are your votes? Why don't you spend your money and he's got millions from the billionaires? Millions. Go out, get your own votes. Convert Sliwa voters. But for me to drop out, I represent a major party line. I have people running under me, council people, judges. They put their heart and soul into it. They support me. I have more donations than Andrew Cuomo does, matching funds. So you know something? This is called voting. Sure. Since when do we not let people vote? Billionaires determine the next mayor? If they don't like it, they can leave. They have options. Blue-collar working class people don't. Those are the people I'm representing, not Andrew Cuomo.
Sure. I mean, this is a big topic, so I want to follow up. So do you don't believe that any solid percentage of the people who vote for you would vote for Cuomo if you dropped out? You don't believe that?
Maybe. Mm-hmm. But will that be enough for him to win? He doesn't have enough of his own voters. Yeah. So basically he's got to poach. Sure. That tells you something right there. You don't even have a base strong enough to beat a fellow Democrat. He beat you once in the primary. 70% of Democrats didn't even put him on ranked choice. What does that tell you? They rejected him. So now he's a man without a party. Try to find him on the ballot. You see where he's placed on the ballot? You got to go through a maze. Yeah. What's his coalition? What's his strategy? I don't see his people in the street.
I mean, look, I understand. I mean, you're someone who clearly cares about New York. You're knowledgeable on the issues, and you're a fiery guy. Like, it feels like I'm really talking to someone who knows their stuff. So I remember in 2020 when Sanders was running again against Biden in the primary, and Warren dropped out on Super Tuesday. I remember this well, and it helped Biden. They were splitting up that anti-Bernie Sanders vote, and it went to Biden. So I think there is historical precedent for it.
But do we really think that helped the country?
I'm not saying it helped the country. I'm
My
saying,
God, this was the most inept guy ever to be president of the United States.
I'm not saying it helped the country. I'm saying what happened was that Biden had an easier way of winning because Sanders, didn't have all that support.
So that was Bernie Sanders who made that decision and disappointed a lot of his followers. That was for him to make. My followers don't want me to drop out. Do you hear a chorus of Curtis Sliwa supporters saying, drop out, drop out, drop out? I have 11 headquarters. I have signs plastered all over.
I understand. But I do see a lot of New Yorkers who are saying, we're terrified of Mamdani.
Well,
we're terrified of Mamdani.
See, that's the problem.
And they say that
Let me
Cuomo...
explain to you. Who's the street warrior here? The moment you show fear, you lose. The Zoronistas have already won because it's a different generation. They say, look, they're all afraid of us. You've empowered them. I've been in situations where I've been surrounded by people with guns. If I blinked, if I showed any fear, you're dead. They've already signaled to the Zoronistas they won. I'm so afraid. Well, then leave if you're afraid. There's nothing prevents you from leaving. Are you willing to fight? They're not willing to fight.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone has any doubt that you're not like the bravest candidate on the stage.
No, it's not
You've
even
been
brave.
shot at. So I understand that full well. And when I say terrified, I mean they don't want to pay even more tax. They don't want to pay 52%. Sure, but
it's sort of like they've already signaled they're leaving, they're abandoning. I'm not leaving. The people who are supporting me are not leaving if somehow I lose. We're staying and we're fighting for the Republican principles. That's how you save a city. That's how you save a state. You don't just sacrifice it. What did Andrew Cuomo say, his billionaire friend? Well, if I lose, I'll flee to Florida too. Whoa, that's great leadership, isn't it? Doesn't work.
The problem is that New York will not be the same if we have a max exodus. And what I mean is that, like, I love this city, for example, and many others love this city.
Right.
And we will stay if shit hits the fan, a lot of us, but a lot of us won't. A lot of us, those who can, will leave. And the city, much like after COVID, will have a very difficult time recovering.
Well, look, who's responsible for that? Andrew Cuomo. You want your savior, your messianic leader to lead you out of this abyss when he got us here to begin with, a no cash bill, raise the age, close Rikers out. All these ideas have been taken by the Democratic Socialist American. He was the architect. Yeah. Who is the apprentice? Zoran Mandami. How did we get here? Right. You're going to trust the guy, the arsonist, to suddenly be the firefighter? Doesn't work.
I mean, to wrap up this topic, because I'm sure you're probably sick of hearing about it.
No, I'm not sick of it.
Okay, because I know you're staying in this race, and that's fine. But do you look at those betting markets by any chance? The chance that you win a race, for example, like
I've never been a gambler in my life,
okay,
other than with my life. George Pataki, right, who beat the better Cuomo, Mario, on November 2nd of 1994. There was no early voting then. He was 14 points behind in the polls. 14 points, right? It's over. He won by 3 points 2 days later. How did that happen? The polls said he had no chance. Rudy Giuliani, when he first ran against David Dinkins, right? U.S. Attorney. Dinkins is 16 points ahead. On the day of the election, no early voting. Rudy loses by 2 points, goes on 4 years later to win by 2 points. Trump Harris, supposed to be neck and neck, right? Trump not only beat Harris, won the popular vote, 7 battleground states. So betting lines, polls, you got to know who your supporters are. I'm willing to put faith in my supporters, and I trust the people. This is democracy. People have a right to vote. There are consequences for elections. The billionaires have put in millions, and they haven't even dented Zoran Mandami, and the professional political class has been wrong every step of the way. So what makes you think that any of them are right now? Cuomo had a chance to beat Zoran when he was the institutional choice of the traditional Democrats. He had all the unions. How did he lose? Because he didn't campaign. Yeah. What is he doing now? He's not campaigning. Yeah. And I kicked his butt on that stage yesterday with Zoran Mandami. I won that debate. I look like the mayor. I had answers. I should step aside for somebody who... It's over for Andrew Cuomo. It's over. Zoran Mandami has to be stopped. You go with the person who can take him on in the neighborhoods where he did well. Andrew Cuomo doesn't go into those neighborhoods.
If you don't win, who would you rather be mayor, Cuomo or?
Neither. It's both a disaster and a catastrophe. They're Democrats.
So you can't make a choice on which one would be worse.
Are you kidding? One is the architect of the disaster. The other is the apprentice of the disaster. You can't separate them. You go, oh, one is a little better than the... No. To me, they got us into this situation. Well, that's why I'm fighting so hard, not only to win for myself, but next year, at least Stefanik to take out Kathy Hochul, so we can do what Rudy and Pataki did in 93 and 94. And if you don't stay focused, drop out. Yeah, Eric Adams. I was supposed to drop out for Eric Adams, right, on June 24th. One of these same people telling me to drop out. Oh, you got no chance. Eric Adams, he's the only one. What happened there? What happened to their star, their savior, that corrupt guy who should be in jail with Bobby Menendez? They're all corrupt. They're all crooks. That's why you see Eric Adams now negotiating with Andrew Cuomo to endorse him.
Yeah.
Birds of a crooked feather flock together. I'm not corrupt.
To me, I think a big moment from this interview is honestly that if Mamdani wins, you won't look at yourself and say, I blame myself for this. Is that right?
Why should I blame myself? I went out there and I fought.
Yeah.
What did the billionaires do? They wasted our time on a loser, two losers, Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo. And the influencers. Who are all these influencers? I love these influencers. Oh, I'm an influencer, man. Who have you influenced?
Yeah, I don't like that word.
No, but the point is, everyone is a self-appointed influencer who've all told me to drop out. How come they've had no impact on Zoran Mandami? Because they can't influence anybody, not even their own children. How many of their own children and grandchildren have voted for Zoran Mandami?
Well, what I see on the street is just a tremendous lack of enthusiasm for Andrew Cuomo. Here's what I see. I see a huge lack of enthusiasm for Cuomo. I see a fear of Mamdani, but I also see tremendous enthusiasm from Mamdani, especially from young people, many of which will tell me socialism won't work, but I'm voting for Mamdani, so this of course, doesn't make any sense. And they look at someone like you and they'll say, oh, well, this guy loves New York, he knows his stuff, but I don't think he has a chance to win. That's more or less the consensus of what I've seen so far.
An election means who can get out their voters, and that's what we're doing. That's what Mandami is doing. I don't see Cuomo doing that. You had to have had this 3 months ahead if you have any goal of getting a get out the vote effort. In the primary, 3 days before the primary, Cuomo got to get out the vote effort with the Carpenters Union. They don't know how to do it. That has to be done with micro-targeting, mailings, texts, emails, door knocking, literature. That's old-fashioned politics. The Zoranistas do it well. I do it well. Cuomo, his day, again, he's the billionaire's dream candidate, and they have failed us every step of the way, the billionaires. They're the ones who helped get us into this mess.
If you don't get in there, what will you say that this fight was all about? What did you want to show the American people? If you don't get in there, what did you want to show the American people?
That there is a way that you go at a new generation, just like mine was a new generation in the 60s. There was counterculture that didn't trust anybody over 30 like me, that supported the anti-war effort, that did everything their parents told them not to do. There is a way to circumvent them. I've experienced that. I'm a baby boomer. But baby boomers have to understand they're no longer the majority. They no longer have the majority of the votes. They may have the majority of the wealth, but they're not the shot callers. Time to move over. The millennials and Gen Zers, it's their time. Let's start recruiting them like I have in my campaign and empowering them instead of making fun of them. They're stupid, they're lazy, they live all their life on this, telling stories like, when I used to go to school without shoes. Nobody wants to hear that crap. I deal with this generation all the time. I have guardian angels all over the world. If you think they're my age, we wouldn't have any guardian angels. So the point being is, when you humiliate and you demean people, as baby boomers are doing constantly to the millennials and Gen Zers, you're driving them away. A lot of them want to support my values. We have a lot of them on board. But you should see the things they say about the Zoranistas. Why would a Zoranista want to leave being a Zoranista when people were making fun of them and putting them down and saying they're lazy and they're no good? Not only that, it's part of the reason that Zoran has risen. My fellow Republicans around the country were attacking his religion and culture. Why would they do that? All they did was galvanize 1 million Muslims who can vote in New York City to vote for Zoran. How stupid is that? So we need to refocus. If somehow we lose, it's time for my generation to say, hey, time to make way for the new generation and stop complaining about them. Oh, ours is a better generation. We worked harder. We're more intelligent. These people have no common sense. Why would any of them want to share our values if we're constantly pushing them away, making fun of them, and demeaning them? That's the one thing that should come out of this. I appeal to them. I have millennials and Gen Zers who believe in these values, but we have a lot of baby boomers who want to live in this fantasy world that somehow was better when we grew up. Oh, it was so much. We grew up in the 60s. It was the same thing. It's a generational change. The only thing I believe that AOC has said, she said, this is a generational change, and it is. And we better get used to it because we no longer are controlling what goes on. We're not the majority of the population. We're not the majority of the voters. We don't have the same energy that they do. My typical person my age, they can go out for one day, very energetic. Then they got to drink Geritol and take a Bengay bath, and you might see them 3 days later. The new generation is what we need. They serve in the military. They do all the heavy work for us, and now we call them stupid and lame and lazy, and they're not intelligent. And well, where did this all come from? I think this generation actually has a lot better attributes than the generation I came out of. They seem to be more caring, more concerned, want to make a difference. They may not know how, but I know a lot who came out of my generation who never think about all the things that this generation thinks about my generation. Global warming, climate change, oh, it's all a myth. It's not a myth. You know, so again, it's a generational change.
Curtis, I really
Very
appreciate
good.
it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this exclusive interview with Curtis Sliwa. My goal was to give him a platform to really share his ideas and answer the questions that so many of us have. That debate did not grant him, or any of the candidates for that matter, that opportunity. I did reach out to the other candidates for an interview, and I'll keep you posted. If you want to watch another episode of The Nate Friedman Show, it's on your screen right now, and I'll see you there.